Hello and welcome to this week's Facebook Live, looking at the abstract images discipline of the World Memory Championships. If you go back to the very early years of the championship, they used to have an images discipline, but it's very, very different. They used to have a slide projector where they had photographic slides of chess positions, works of art, slightly unusual pictures, and they would show those for about 2 seconds per image. And then you would be given a subset of the original set of images with other images mixed in with them. And the aim of the discipline was to say, had you seen the image before? And if you had seen it before, was it the same way up? Was it upside down? Was it mirror image? How had it been altered between the first set and the second set? And this was done for the first number of years in the competition. But of course, the problem with this, it was rather non-standard. It was difficult to replicate this in different countries across different competitions. So it was deemed to be too difficult to stage and too much variation between different competitions to be fair. But it did test natural memory. There was not a lot you could do in terms of systems to be able to prepare for this particular discipline. It was based on your ability to improvise as you were memorising. Another thing that was also in the early years also involved natural memory and the ability to improvise was the surprise event. They had a surprise competition, usually devised by the organisers, the hosts of the competition. So like the Simpsons Challenge, we've got Simpsons in the Strand. When OAG, the travel company, sponsored the event, they had a round the world trip where you had to memorise all the different stages on a trip around the world. That was devised by them. So again, it was a test of natural memory to some extent. You could use some systems, but it was something you couldn't really train or prepare for. But it was decided quite early on this was not really fair. If you think about the physical sports, like think about the decathlon in athletics, they don't suddenly spring a different race or different event on the competitors. They know exactly the 10 events they're going to be competing in, and they can practice for those. So it was thought it's much better to have 10 events that are always standard, always the same anywhere in the world, and there's no surprises. So we need to come up with a new discipline. So Dominic O'Brien, thinking about this fact of being able to test natural memory, came up with the abstract images event that we have today. So it consists of 5 images in a row, and they're random shapes of image. I'll show you a picture. They look a little bit like that, or they look exactly like that. So 5 random shapes with random textures per row, 10 rows to a page. And the memorisation sheet consists of just these images, and the recall sheet consists of the same images in each row, but they've been mixed up. The order's been changed within each row. And the aim is to write down numbers from 1 to 5 in the order in which you saw them on the memorisation sheet. So 1 is the first that's to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as you go across the page. So you then write that order, corresponding order, on the recall sheet. So relatively straightforward, natural memory. Dominic thought that you would use things like, what does it look like? Is it like the shapes in the clouds? So does it look like a rabbit? Does it look like a butterfly or a duck or something? And you could make those associations in your mind using your imagination as you memorised, which is quite a good test of natural memory. Also, we banned the use of rulers because the shapes are not always the same width. So if you had a ruler, you could measure the shapes and therefore translate them into numbers and memorise them in that way. Although it would take a lot of time to do that, it was thought that would be an unfair way of converting it into numbers. But of course, memory competitors are very resourceful. They like systems, so they thought about this and they actually then looked at the textures. And if you assign a number to each texture, you can then convert the shapes into numbers very easily, and then you can then memorise those numbers. Then when you come to recall, convert them back into the recognising the textures, and you've got your answer. So what's happened is nowadays, this is the method that everyone uses. They convert into numbers, and they're able to do pages and pages and pages. We had 28 pages at the World Memory Championships, and people getting close to that. So it just shows how a number system makes a massive difference, but it completely scuppered the idea of natural memory. But having said that, all of the disciplines in the competition are relying to some extent or other on systems. Slightly less from names and faces, but the majority of them are based on mostly on number systems, so you can memorise things in that way. So from the very early years of images on a screen to the current abstract images, it's been a progression and an evolution, but it just shows the resourcefulness of competitors to memorise anything if they have enough time to think about a system they can devise to do that. So this has been an interesting insight into the first of the disciplines in a competition. Over the coming weeks we'll be looking at the other disciplines. I'll be giving you some history and some tips about those. So looking forward to talking to you again very soon. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.